All right, let's get to it. A big warm welcome, and I say that with a sweat on my brow. It's really hot here in Denmark, unusually hot for this time of year. So we have just to endure the heat for this presentation, and hope you are all well and cooled. As you know, today's presentation is coming from a very old friend of mine, actually, Jesper, who has been the front runner of BIM technology for many years. I'm not going to go too deeply into a presentation. I'll let Jesper do that himself. If we just go on with a little bit of practicalities, this session is being recorded. It says will be recorded, but it's being recorded, so that you can see it later on if you want to, and also just a heads up that you are on camera even though you are off. Feel free to pose any questions that you might have. We might not be able to answer them during the session, but we will get back to you at the end of the session. And after the session, please feel free to contact us for any follow-up questions that you feel you might have. A little bit about me. I have a very long background in BIM technology, and have an outstanding role with both Revit and Tekla for the Danish market. And especially in my Tekla role, it became apparent that this whole BIM coordination effort was really a hard thing to do for many reasons that I will get back to. But I can show you a slide from a presentation that I did many years back, where I was introducing the BCF format to the Danish market, and here explaining why we need something like BCF. Not saying that we don't need that anymore, but BCF could in many ways be considered a workaround put up against the actual solution that we wanted to have at that time. I call it a synchronization folder. And the reason for that was that I could not imagine in my head that there would be a viewer that would be able to handle all the requests that we had for this discipline. But then came Revizto. Revizto says your single source of truth, integrated collaboration platform. And the fun story about me and my history in Revizto is that when they called me, I said, yeah, I don't really want to work with BIM coordination because we can't really get to where we want to be, as I said before. And they said, yeah, but could we just show you Revizto before you say no? And after the presentation, I was completely sold. This is simply revolutionizing the whole way we look at BIM coordination. And I'll tell you a little bit more about why. Performance is the big thing. Revizto is based on gaming technology, which makes it able to handle very large models. And even though you have smaller projects, the amount of data is still going up and up because of the level of detail, because of point clouds and non-object-based authoring tools, which could be something like mechanical or plant or something like that. It's just eternally challenging. And Revizto has really taken up that challenge. Also, what we have launched now here in April is a mobile phone app, which is just mind-blowing to see. Even sometimes we have these extremely large models, and we put them into the phone app. Sometimes it works even better in the phone app. I'm not going to go too deeply into that, but if you have an interest in the phone app and what it can do for you, we will have a seminar on June 29th by my good colleagues Levi Brown and James Lawrence, who will go a little bit more into detail. But long story short is that we also see a change in the way that we look at BIM coordination, in the sense of anywhere, anytime. It's not just a matter of being able to go out on site. It's simply a matter of having it on you all the time. And as I said before, looking at the power of Revizto just in the palm of your hand is just mind-blowing to see. So another big challenge that I was talking about before was these non-object-based authoring tools. Of course, the object-based who are IFC compatible, we can get to where we want to some degree, but then we have something coming in from other platforms like Inventor or Plant or whatever that would be, Civil for that matter, and then we are stuck with that. But not anymore, and we don't even have to convert. We don't need to convert to IFC in the first place. We're just directly compatible with any kind of format that you would need for your efforts, which is especially interesting in some verticals like offshore infrastructure and plant, where there were, let me say, maybe little to no BIM coordination earlier, and now we're working with a lot of the big players in order to have it all coordinated, which is something that is a big revelation to them, that there is actually a platform on the market that is able to handle all their requests. These are some examples. Infrastructure is always a good example because they have really large models, and we have customers coming in who are just meeting the performance ceiling and just contacting us to see can we handle your models, and yes, we can. This is an old slide that tells you a little bit about the workflow that we see with many platforms. A lot of communication going on, mailing, and we have a lot of documents that we need to write and send back and forth. And sometimes it's just really a hassle to keep track of a cluttered workflow, which is something that Revizto really excels at and makes it a one-stop shop for your BIM effort, where you have everything in there. One of the big feedbacks that I get from customers is actually archive projects, where they say we have a communication with the owner now, and they're asking about what happened at that time and why did we do that. Could sometimes be a week's detective work. Now it's a matter of hours in Revizto because everything is just in there. It's also illustrated very well, but by one of our other customers who simply put it in a schedule. What have we done before, and what are we doing now? What platforms don't we need anymore, and what workflows are going away simply because we have the possibility of putting it in this one-stop shop that is Revizto. So I won't be talking for a very long time, but I'd like to remind you to take away these 3 points. The power of Revizto. We are not going to be showing huge models today, but Jesper will be showing some interesting models from their business. But keep in mind that anything that you want to have in there, we have yet to see the performance ceiling of Revizto. And we do have some customers who are trying very badly to find where the limit is, and we haven't found it yet. So that is a very big thing to take with you. The ease of Revizto, it's something that is very easy to start using. I'm not going to use the word intuitive because you still need to know how to use it, but it is really easy to use. And what is the big advantage of that is, of course, that people who are normally not considered BIM people can actually take up Revizto and can participate, and we're seeing that more and more. CEO and other people without any kind of engineering background, maybe old engineers like myself who are dedicated to a 2D world now, step easily into the 3D world with Revizto, and also this that you are able to do a lot of things that wasn't possible before, and you're not hung up on file conversion and all the normal issues that I think you all know from BIM coordination. And the value of Revizto, of course, it just gives you an oversight of the whole BIM project. And again, for everybody, that is just unprecedented. Everybody can go in and check these enormous projects and be a part of it without, as I said before, without a great BIM insight or knowledge. And it will save you hundreds of hours, many errors, and dare we say it, even in a fun way. So without further ado, I will leave the floor to my good old friend Jesper, who will be presenting for the rest of the time. I will stop sharing now, Jesper. You are there,
yeah, Martin.
And you can hear me. That's good.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, that's good. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to talk a little bit about our Revizto journey and why Revizto and how Revizto became to be a strategic collaboration platform for Artelia Denmark. The agenda today that I'm going to cover a little bit about who Artelia Denmark is, the obligatory, then the challenge, why did we need a collaboration platform, or how did we get to that acknowledgement that we needed it, and when we acknowledged that, why did we end up choosing Revizto as the platform? Then I'll talk a little bit about our implementation from the beginning, where it was a communication platform mainly, the initial implementation, and then the implementation of Revizto Plus, where we have all the features of class detection, appearance profile, and so on. Then I'm going to dive into the deep end. Everybody always says, don't do a live demo. I'm going to. And since I'm not a Revizto super user, we'll see how that works out, but I'm confident that that it will pay off in the end. These are the things I'll go through. We'll see 2D and 3D in context. I'll talk a little bit about the issues and what we have in there. Search sets, how we set them up, how we standardize it. Appearance profile, class automation, and reports and dashboards. And then I'll talk a little bit about what we have, the gains we have obtained with Revizto as a platform. So first of all, we are part of Artelia Group, which is a French-based company. We are a little over 7,000 employees worldwide. We have offices in more than 40 countries and projects in more than 100. And we are 100% owned by employees, which is a big gain. We are 9 business units, where Artelia Nordics is one of them. We are in Denmark and Norway. We have around 1,200 employees. We have 8 offices in Denmark and 3 in Norway. And in Denmark, we are roughly 1,100 employees in 3 business units, 8 offices, as I mentioned. And I'm sitting in Copenhagen as a BIM technology manager, which means that I have the responsibility for a lot of our BIM technology programs, platforms, and so on, but also processes of how we are working, and working closely with a lot of very clever colleagues. I started in a company called Mo & Brødskov 19 years ago, which is a part of Artelia Denmark today. And at the time, I was hired to do standardizing on AutoCAD and MicroStation, which meant layers, blocks, and stuff like that. And during the past couple of years, I've actually I've thought about that the standardization that we started at that time have actually showed off or paid off during the last couple of years, where we have standardized on Revit as well, Navisworks, Solibri, and stuff like that. Because in today's business, everything you hear is that data is key to everything. And when we've been standardizing also the data in our models, it's also been a big issue on standardizing or automation and processes. So it's been a journey on standardization. So a little bit about the challenge. So we start the fairy tale. Once upon a time. This is one of our projects we did in. I didn't do it because it's from 1934. The old guy Mo, who founded the company more than 90 years ago, was a concrete expert at that time. But it's so funny because in the bottom half of this drawing, it's actually the description of how the concrete should be mixed. That's what you did 90 years ago. This is one of our more recent projects, actually our first Revit project. We took the most complicated project we had for many years, started it off as our first Revit project. It's an aquarium in Denmark. And we actually had to, in the beginning with Revit, we had to throw in the towel on the steel structure that you can see here. We actually did that in Tekla because we couldn't do it in Revit at that time. And this is also from that project. As I showed you before, we were still communicating on drawings and not really communicating using the 3D models, though we had them. And this example is one of the places where it actually went wrong. Because if you look at the drawing of this ventilation plan, it doesn't show that one of the ducts is not horizontal. So when the contractor looked at the duct, he mounted this duct as horizontal, but in the model you can easily see that it's not horizontal, the one in the top. So when the ceiling guys came in and had to put in the ceiling, well, the duct was in the way, so they had to do the whole thing over again. So this whole communication thing, especially around the drawing and especially around the models, we have put into Revizto. So we have all the communication from beginning to end in Revizto, and the whole history of all the issues. I think we started around 5 years ago. We could see that it's always, is it the hen or is it the egg coming first? But there was a lot of platforms popping up that could do issue handling. And we had projects in the company that started trying out some of these platforms to see if they couldn't solve this communication problem. And at one point, I think we had 4 or 5 different platforms running, and people was doing one thing on one project and one thing on another project. And we just said, well, we can see that this is only going to grow. But we have to have one platform in the company where we will work so people will be productive from project to project. So we sat down and identified some of the platforms, and this is from that time. So I've grayed out the platforms that we tested, and also, to be fair, I know that these platform has also evolved as Revizto have, but at the time this is what we looked at. I know it's in Danish, so some of you might not understand it. But we identified, for instance, is this working in a web viewer, or is it a program that you installed? We could see that the platforms running on web viewers was not very good on performance at the time. We looked at how you exported the models into the different platforms. Many of them work on OpenBIM, which means you have to export IFC models. And as Martin talked about earlier, we still have programs that doesn't export IFC files, so they don't support OpenBIM. So how do we then get these models into platforms that only support OpenBIM? That was a problem. But Revizto, as Martin also said, has plugins for a lot of these different programs. And the ones we looked at the time was Tekla, Revit, and Civil 3D, which they supported. And many more have come along. For instance, ArchiCAD we work seamlessly with architects in ArchiCAD now, which used to be a huge problem. Then we looked at the issue types. Were they model-based? Were they drawing-based? And since Revizto supported all of them, that was a big plus. We had some of the platforms at the time, you couldn't control rights for the different users. If you were invited into a project, you could see all issues in there. And we had some projects where we actually wanted to invite the client in to be a part of the process. But since we couldn't control what they could see in the project, they could see everything. And some of the communication internally in the design team between architects and engineers, for instance, was not for the client to see, but we had no rights to control, couldn't control the rights. So that was also some of the things that Revizto solved. Then we had this thing with taking the 2D and 3D and actually seeing it together, which I'll just show in a while. Revizto had supported virtual reality, which we use on a couple of projects. And lately, we can see that point clouds, as Martin also mentioned, is becoming more and more used on projects, and which Revizto is just extremely good at handling. Just the other day, I saw that we are actually we have a big project where everything is has been scanned with in point clouds, and both from the outside and inside, and it works in Revizto. So we started out when we identified, not that we were using only that it was Revizto we're going to use, but overall, and when we started the process, we said, okay, we are going to, because this is going to be so beneficial to us, we will be offering this to partners on the project, paid by Artelia. And that's where the strategic part of it comes in, because we can see that our benefit in getting this communication, especially the communication part of it, in one place is so big a benefit for us that we're willing to pay for it if the architects and the engineers or the clients, maybe even the contractors when they join the project. So we will pay for the whole thing. With the Revizto Classic, which used to be just the communication part of it, where we did the testing of the models, the collision control, the consistency control, stuff like that in either Navisworks or Solibri. It was enough for us to invite the whole project team for roughly 1.5 hours, 2 hours intro meeting with everybody. If the contractor came along later in the process, we would give them the same intro. And after that, everybody would be more or less up and running. We have had minimal support in the projects where this have been used. With Revizto Plus and the more complex features like class automation and appearance profiles, we are doing a more formal training in-house for our BIM coordinators, BIM managers, to get the most out of these Revizto Plus features. Today we have approximately 150 projects running. These are primarily design projects, but we also have review projects. And with review projects, I mean projects that we take a design project that is from beginning to end. When we have a phase review, cross-discipline, we will take a copy of that project and export it out to a review project. That means that the models and drawings won't be updated. Then we do phase reviews on that project, identifying issues. Some of them might be solved during the phase reviews. Some of the issues, we can export them back to the design project, and they can be solved later on in the process. We have approximately 900 users now on our projects, where roughly 2/3 are internal and 1/3 are external, like clients, architects, and contractors. So it's quite a huge number of people that are working on these projects. So just to a little bit about the Revizto versus Revizto Plus, simple Revizto. This is the features that we have in the simple Revizto, where we have you can do sections and measuring, and you can do issues, for instance. But with the advanced Revizto or Revizto Plus, we have the advanced features like find objects, search sets, appearance profile, appearance templates, and class automation. And these are the features that we do formal training on internally as well. So with that said, I'm going to, as I said, dive into the deep end, do a little bit of a live demo here. First of all, this is one of our training projects. I just have to see if I can get this. I have a control bar at the top of my screen. That's
That's always annoying.
Can I get that away? I don't know.
Can drag it to the bottom, maybe?
Oh, I can. Yeah, perfect. Okay. First of all, one of the things that we didn't anticipate when we started out with Revizto was actually how great a success Revizto would be with people that weren't usually moving around 3D models. They were used to 2D drawings. But when we started out, you could also export 2D drawings to Revizto. So they could go in and see their 2D drawings in Revizto. As soon as we showed them how to jump either from the drawing using the jump to 3D, where you just click on the button, then you get this square, say, okay, where do you want to go? And I can just click one somewhere within the green square, and it will take me to that place inside the model very quickly. I hope that it's as smooth as I see it on my screen when you see it on your screen.
It's always a little bit on the online meetings, so
that's why I'm saying, because it's very smooth when I navigate around. I can also, if I wanted to see this drawing in context with the 3D model, I can click this green icon down here, and it takes the drawing and places it where it's supposed to go inside the model. And the thing is that in Revizto, everything is XYZ based. So everything more or less knows where it's supposed to be compared to other things. So also issues, for instance, I'll show that in a little while, that if you do an issue on a drawing, it also knows where it is inside the 3D model. So if you do it on the 5th floor, it will also be on the 5th floor inside the 3D model. And this was actually one of the things that we didn't anticipate in the beginning, that this could be such a major benefit for us. But we really moved a lot of people who was not used to working with 3D models, we got them to use the 3D models as well. But this was the introduction, so it was really, really cool. As I mentioned, with the issues, I'll just jump over to another project just to have some issues. Inside the issue tracker, where we have all our issues, we have all the history of each issue. We can go back in time and see what have happened on these issues. And one of the things that I can take this one here. One of the things that is come along over quite recently is also that we have, for instance, we have levels on the issues and we have grid locations on the issues. So again, it knows where the whole thing is placed in the model. This is a screen dump that was taken when the issue was made. I can see that. I can go in and I can edit that. I can also go in and see it in 3D. What? See, here we go. So I can isolate the objects, but I can also see them with the whole model ghosted. I can also see which drawing it refers to. I can see this is my issue here. And in 3D, for instance, I can go in and I can, for instance, measure a minimum distance between these two objects to see if it's true that this issue was created from a minimal distance and not a clash detection. And I can see that this minimal distance is correct now. Then we have the search sets, which is one of the new features that have come with the Revizto Plus roughly a year and a half ago. I just see where I have to go here. I have to go in here. One of my favorite buttons in Revizto is this home button in the drawing. It just takes me back and resets everything, so I don't have to. It just resets everything, so it's much easier. With the search sets, I can very easily find issue or find searches. If I go in and look at the models here, I have every model turned on right now, but I can do presets in here and say, well, I want to see all models minus the architect. It says apply, and I can see that now I only have the engineering models. The search sets here. We have done if I go in and look at the search sets now, I only have one that I'm going to use in a little while. But since we are standardizing a lot of things, we are also working on standardizing the way we work with Revizto. So when we start up a project, we have a template project with all these things defined up front. So I can go in and say import settings. Takes a little while to see which projects I can choose from, but we have this template project. Inside this template project, these are all the things that I can import from that template project where we have our standards. So I can say, well, I want to import the search sets, and I also like to import issue tags because they are also very standardized. I can also import all the other things, but for the time being, I just have these things imported. One of the things I can't import in here is the class tests that we use in class automation, but we have another import possibility for that, which I'll show in a short while. It says to me that the server will take care of it as soon as I see, everything came in here. It only takes a couple of seconds. So this is all the search sets that I have imported from our template project. And the way we work with our search sets is we have this cascading search sets where we define everything with the discipline models. Underneath that, we have search sets that goes into all the different categories from Revit or from Tekla, which we use on a number of structural projects. And we also have search sets on systems, for instance, sprinklers. We have all the HVAC systems that we can go in and search out. Then we have components. Some of the electrical components, for instance, are in a Revit category that's very wide. So we have defined them as a component in other sets. And if I go in and see, for instance, I can take the electrical cable tray. If I go and see how that is defined, I can see here in my find objects that it's defined as I look in another search set, which is the K07, which is the electrical standard that we work from, the syntax. And it takes a Revit or a property from the Revit file, which is the Revit category as cable trays. And that's the cascading part I talked about, that we search inside another search set, which is defined on a higher level. And all these search sets, I can, for instance, take the cable trays, isolate in transparency, for instance. I can also isolate them without any other models and see my cable trays alone here. Back to my home button here. These search sets are extremely easy to set up. For instance, if I take the floor in here, pick a floor, I can go over to my properties. I can select any property which is comes from Revit. It could be a type name, for instance. If I just right click on that, I can say create new search. It takes everything that's with this Revit type name called CLT, blah, blah, blah. And I can just see save as a new search set, CLT, root folder, comes in here. You can see it down at the bottom. And right when I click that, the problem with the screen here, you can see that it's already found all the objects that will be a part of the search set. You can also just isolate them to have a look at them without the rest of the model. And these search sets play a very important role when it comes to the appearance profiler and of course also the class automation, since these are the bases that we're using here. I just delete this one here. I've done a small, I guess to see where it is. I have this glue lamp. Just have to get it with all the laminated wood that I can isolate either in transparency, a lot of columns here, or I can also just isolate them. And this is also set up. I'll just say this search set here is just take every Revit type, which is named 400 by 400. It searches in everywhere in the model, but I could also set it up to search only in the structural model, for instance. What I've done with this is I have also created an appearance profile with this search set. Just have to this away. That I can check the data inside my model. And with this appearance profile, I've set up an appearance profile that says, look inside this search set that's called glulam, isolated. And after that, look inside a Revit property called other, which is a building part description, which is missing from these elements. So I can start checking my model as well on the data that are inside the model and do some Q&A on that. So that was the appearance profiler and the appearance templates. Then I'm just going to show a little bit about the class automation, which is the last button we will come to here. And again, as I mentioned earlier, I couldn't import class automations in the import settings over here, but I have an import possibility inside the class automation. So I have exported the class tests that we have set up in our template to this file here that I import. And these are all the class tests that we have set up as a standard in our template file. Again, the class automations are based on the search sets that we have set up in here. But also we have in our Navisworks setup that we used to run, we had defined, I think it was more than 1,500 different clash tests that we could run over a course of a project. I think we have done 150 in here. And the reason we have cut down is not that it's not important to do, but it's so much easier to set it up inside Revizto for the BIM coordinators or BIM managers on the projects. And I'm going to take my own medicine and just show you how easy it is, and not just run the ones that I have imported. So if I want to do a new clash test, I can choose from the different search sets that I have set up. So I will just go into the one called into the category on the structural and take the floors on one side. I just have to move this bar again. And on the other side, I will go into systems, the HVAC, and just take the drainage, for instance. These are the two search sets that I will be clashing against each other. Oh, I just have to give it a name. So I'll call it floors versus drainage. Done. Then I can import from another clash test if I want to, but I'll just do next. Then here I can set up if I want to do have ignoring clash test, for instance, and that could, for instance, be duct insulation or pipe insulation that I don't want to be clashing walls, for instance, or floors. So I could set up a search set which was just insulation, and then have that put in here in the ignoring clash tests. I can also ignore duplicates, for instance. But I'll click next. Then I have the possibility of different kinds of tests. I can do a hard clash, I can do clearance, set up what should the clearance be. As I showed you earlier, the clash test between fire sensors and air terminals was done on this clearance test. I can do if it's only horizontal, vertical clearance. There's a tolerance I can set up. Tolerance, again, horizontal or vertical. And I can also set directly above or directly below. But for this, I'll just do a hard clash. Then there's one of the great things with Revizto is that you can just tell it to group the clashes when you do the clash test. So I can add a grouping, for instance, level. Then I want, as the first one, I'll take proximity below here. And I just set the proximity to be, for instance, 3 meters instead of 15. So this is for the grouping of the clashes. Then I can say what should the name of the clash group be. I just put in level here, and then the clash name. I can structure the way that I want it to be named. Then I can do a simple automation, but I can also do what they call an advanced automation. And I'm not going to go and dive into this in deep, but you can set up a lot of different rules, conditions to how the issues should be created. For instance, if you have take a whole HVAC model, you can split it up and say, okay, if the system, for instance, is heating, then the issue that you create should be assigned to this guy or girl instead of if it's drainage, it should go to another assignee. And it's really it's a really cool feature. But I just click next to this and click finish. So down here I have my floors and drainage issue that I can open. I can see the whole the setting of this issue or this clash tests. What are the rules? I can see it out here on the right side. And I can also go in here and edit, for instance, the selection if I want to do that afterwards. But I can just go in and back. I can go in and run this test now. So I can see now that it found 68 new clashes were found and grouped into 39 groups across one test. So when I open this, I get the different groups in here. I can go in and see the clashes. And the really cool thing about it is that it doesn't only tell me, for instance, one of the big issues we had with Navisworks was that if I group clashes, for instance, it would say that, well, you have we have one clash, but inside that one clash there could be 800 clashes. You couldn't see that anywhere. In Revizto, you can see it down here. It's 39 clashes in 68 subclashes, and I can see in here. If I drag this out a little bit, I can see how many clashes that I have inside this group, for instance. They can see I have 4 clashes in here. One of the really cool things with the Revizto is also that if I on a later find out that I want to group, for instance, group my clashes in another way, not by level and proximity, I can just go in and say, well, I want to group them not by proximity, but I do it by selection on element A, which was my structural part of it. When I do that, I can just go in and run the clash test again. and the grouping now is different. Now you can see I have 29 clashes. It's the same amount of subclashes, of course, but it's been grouped into 19 or 29 now instead of what it was before. So it's really cool to change the way that you want to have these clashes presented. When I've identified my clashes, I can also go in and create issues from these clashes. When I click the button, I can just show here, the button up here, run clash detection plus sync with issue tracker. I also have this sync with issue tracker. It asks me, okay, do you want to have reviewed classes only, or should it be reviewed or not reviewed clashes? And that comes from the clash test I can do in here. If I click this, I can say, well, the person in charge have reviewed this. It should be identified as a clash. You can also approve it, so it won't be created as an issue. But if I just review a couple of these, when I click the create issues, it tells me, well, you have 4 clashes in 1 test, so I'll just sync that with the issue tracker. So if I go over to the issue tracker now, I can see that these 4 issues have been created from this clash detection. That was the end of the live demo. I just go back to the, where's that? I can't see. PowerPoint down here. Oh, it wasn't. Sorry. I still have to say a little bit about the reports and dashboards that we can do. This is one of our live projects, so I won't fiddle around in here. But we have this button up here in the issue tracker, which is reporting, it says. That will take me to a workspace in a web browser for this project, where I can set up reports, which can be set up to run automatically. And sent, for instance, to specific people. And these reports can be, they can look like this, for instance, which is just the different clashes defined inside the report, which is just not with the history of the clash, but you can also export them with a lot of more data and history of the clashes. On the workspace, there are also dashboards, very much used by BIM managers and project managers. We can set dashboards up to show a flow chart of issues over a certain period. You can set them up to see pie charts of statuses solved and so on. You can have charts of issues compared over time on different disciplines and stuff like that to see how the project is evolving. And it's a great tool for project managers, for instance, to see how the project is going. So that was the last part of my live demo. Go back to the PowerPoint. As I mentioned, you can still do clash tests in Navisworks. We have a few projects where we use that as well, because we have some file types that doesn't really go into Revizto that well, but we're also taking them into Navisworks and then putting the Navisworks files into Revizto, which is also a workaround. for that. But you can set it up in Navisworks if you don't do the class automation in Revizto. And you can also use BCF files from Solibri, for instance, to update clashes and issues in Revizto and export them back to BCF file in Solibri if you have a partner on the project working in Solibri, for instance. Well, our gains have been many, especially issues gathered in one place, as I mentioned earlier. Instead of having in meeting minutes, in mails, have the people agreeing on something over a phone call, not communicating it to the rest of the team. It's so much easier to have everything in one place. As I mentioned, non-BIM users, an exceptional access to the 3D models through the 2D environment. And then not Revit, as I said here, that's a typo. Revizto, of course, have become the tool that are used in meetings. You can set up a search or a filter in Revizto and just filter down maybe a couple of issues, maybe 10 issues, tag them for a meeting date or something, and then you can very quickly in a meeting identify these 10 issues that you want to talk about in that specific meeting. And we don't have to, we don't use BIM managers in the meetings, and now the project managers can handle it themselves. We have these phase reviews. They have become digital. Everything is in one place. Really cool. A lot of project managers and reviewers are very happy with that. This is actually a quote from one of our BIM managers who said it has become fun to be a BIM coordinator, BIM manager now. And one of the fun thing is that if a project manager comes up to you and say, well, can you just update the class detection on this project? You don't have to use days for it now. It can be, they update the class detections, for instance, several times in a week, which we never did before because it was too time consuming. And then project managers can follow the process of the projects in the reports and the dashboards. So that was my presentation on Revizto. I think that we're also 1 minute short of 3 o'clock.
Absolutely. I was just going to say you're spending the time well. We should have a little bit of time for a question round, but if you are not intending to ask a question, we absolutely understand if you sign up now, and we want to thank you for your participation in this presentation from Jesper. Thank you very much, Jesper. Do we have any questions from the audience? That does not seem to be the case.
I can see there's one in the
no, sorry, I didn't see that. What do I then do? Okay, just a minute. This is a new functionality to me. So yeah, there we go. Allow to talk.
Hello, can you hear me?
We
Hi.
can.
Hi. Thank you for the great presentation. It was really interesting. One question, can we see the issues directly in Revit, or do you have to have Revizto open on one side and, you know, compare the ID of elements on Revit on the other side?
Oh, that's a really good question, because that's a really cool feature as well. I can just a minute, I'll just share my screen again.
Thank you.
When you are in Revizto, if you there's a plugin for Revit where you get a little panel inside Revit, and when you start up Revizto from there, it knows which project it's linked up to. When you do it that way, you can just go into the issue tracker, you double click the issue, and it will take you back to Revit and isolate the elements that are in the issue, And if you have a section box around the issue, it will also show that inside Revit.
Okay, great.
And it's almost instantaneous.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the panel? No more questions. So again, thank you for. Oh, I did get one here. Let me just again find. There we go. Can you hear us, Fiona? Are you possibly muted, Fiona?
Yes, good morning. Thank you. I put a couple questions on the Q&A, but the first one would be, in the world of all of these different softwares available, what would your competitors be, if you would say to Revizto, if there are any? And then would everyone require a license to be able to use and view, or would we be able to share with outside members?
Maybe I can just talk about the licensing quickly. We are introducing a project-based licensing model where you pay a fixed price for a project, and then you can issue out as many licenses as you want to. And that's to support your initial question. How do we communicate with people outside? We just issue them a license. We can also do the standard EXE and so on, but it's just so much better if you have your own license, and if it doesn't add an extra cost to your project, then that's just the way forward. Jesper, do you want to touch on the competitors? Can you still hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Not really. As I mentioned in the presentation, we did this matrix some years ago. And as I also mentioned, I won't hang anybody out to dry. So I prefer not to talk, but if you do a search on the web, you will find 5 or 8 platforms that can more or less do the same.
Okay.
But I wouldn't like to mention any of them here.
That's fine. But I guess knowing there's others, what would set Revizto apart?
I think there are several things, and I also mentioned them in my presentation. It's a little bit, it's a give and take, because yeah, I mentioned some of the things that have made us choose Revizto over some of the others. Performance is one of them. There are some of them that are web-based. We can see we've tested them, and we could see issues on handling large models, point clouds, for instance, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not very reluctant to hang anybody out to dry.
No problem. Yeah, it just gets overwhelming for us to figure out, all of the options, and how to narrow it down is the only reason.
I can understand why, because it's really a jungle out there. It is, and I think it should be, it should more be you that would start to look at what are the things that you want to use. What are your key features that you want to set up? It could be different from mine. So there could be other platforms that could serve your needs.
Okay.
And also never take our any vendors word for it, because we are talking very positively about our own products, but that's also why we're offering an extended proof of concept, where you for a very little amount of money can have the software on board 2 or 3 months, or what you prefer, where you get the full training and support, so that you can really get the sense of, is this the software for you?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Any more? I think that was the last of them. So once again, thank you very much to Jesper. Thank you all for participating. and let's everybody keep in touch. Okay.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.